So one of the things that's interesting to me about sort of the strategy in this primary, I spent some time with the Biden campaign recently. You've spent obviously a lot of time with them. Yeah. Is that they're eager for this fight with Donald Trump. And in some ways, it would be better for them if it was clear sooner so that they could run the race. But what are they telling you about how eager they are for the primary to be over and their preparations for that?
I think the president has found his voice. He's strong in his speech in Valley Forge. He wants to draw the contrast. He wants to say that, look, he stood up for the middle class, working class. Donald Trump had 4 years, large tax cuts to very wealthy people. He's bringing manufacturing back. Donald Trump didn't do anything in terms of new factories. And most importantly, President Biden loves democracy. He loves the town halls. He loves the democratic spirit. Donald Trump doesn't represent that. He's ready to draw the contrast, and people, like they have his whole career, are underestimating him. And come here. Look at the enthusiasm for the president here organically. He's not even on the ballot, and House party after House party packed, not because of me, because they want to vote for him.
He also loves people. He's an extrovert. It's quite exhausting. I think it's fair to admit.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about MSNBC. That has a severe case of Trump derangement syndrome as a network, okay? Just yesterday, I believe I did a video about Tiffany Carlson, who got fired from MSNBC for being too anti-white, right? I mean, imagine that. Imagine being too anti-white for MSNBC, but that's part of the reason why she got fired. She said in her explanation of being fired that MSNBC was obsessed with Trump, right? They're obsessed with covering Trump endlessly, right? Because, again, their TDS is out of control. That's all they want to talk about, okay? And, of course, this is what they're doing going into the 2024 election season. They're covering Trump endlessly. In fact, the TDS is so strong that they have commentators, like, for example, Jen Rubin, who went on a network and essentially claimed that the mainstream liberal media is not going hard enough against Trump, despite the fact that they've been calling the guy Hitler, saying that he's a racist, he's a Nazi, also saying that he's a threat to democracy for the last 4 or 5 years. But apparently, according to Jen Rubin, they are being too soft on Trump and they need to go harder, if that's even possible. Take a look.
And it'll help you, I think, realize what's really at stake in this election.
I mean, Jen, people don't even want to watch clips of Donald Trump on our shows, the feedback we get when we do that. But I think McKay hits a very important point, the urgency of Trump, the potency of Trump, the danger of Trump. And I think McKay's right. People I talk to do treat him as a quirky abstraction, as opposed to possibly the guy who's going to help oversee the demise of democracy in America.
Well, I think two things are going on. One, this speaks to how badly the mainstream media has covered him. They have normalized him. They have cleaned up the rhetoric so he sounds in a clip or he reads in print much more coherent than he actually is. It's only very recently that the mainstream media has been reporting on his really shocking totalitarian claims. But of course, he's been this way all along. And I think because they have done such a bad job, because they have made an effort to treat the Republican Party like the Democratic Party, this notion that he's not so bad, that he's just kind of a cartoon character has set in. And that's on the mainstream media. That's on the failure to be honest and to side with truth rather than having this false balance. And I think the second thing, and why it's perhaps important to go to one of these rallies, is to understand why he does have supporters. These people are part of a fascist cult. And let's be honest, there are a lot of them, but a lot of them doesn't mean that they're behaving logically or rationally. To the contrary, we've seen in other fascist regimes that millions of people, sometimes even a majority of the country, becomes intoxicated with an authoritarian figure. And these people are utterly irrational. If you speak to some of them, they will spit back these bizarro conspiracy theories. They actually believe in all of the mumbo jumbo that he tells them. So I think it would be a wake-up call about what these people are about. And no, we're not going to convince people who are part of the cult to switch. As you say, they're impervious to any kind of data, any kind of information. But what you have to do if you care about democracy is mobilize the people who already know what he's a danger and reaffirm and re-educate the people who are perhaps kind of flirting in the middle. They're soft Republican Democrats, they're never Republicans, about the danger of going back to Trump. And I think that's the job between now and November, and that's the challenge for the Biden administration.
I think you're right.
Yeah, so you see that, you heard that. Clearly and obviously, TDS makes you delusional, right? Because that lady is delusional if she really believes that the mainstream liberal media has not covered Trump hard enough, right? When the mainstream liberal media literally covers everything that Trump says and they blow it out of proportion and try to make it seem like the worst thing ever. I mean, these people have been talking about how Trump is going to be the end of democracy, the end of the country, the end of the world, literally forever. I mean, on CNN, they're quite literally talking about how the world is watching with dread as Trump may become president of the United States again. And by the way, it's partly the liberal media's fault because of this false sense of neutrality in the coverage between Republicans and Democrats. This is what they're saying. Pay attention.
We cannot deconstruct the minds of the American voters. But how, Mark, is the world reacting to Trump's blowout in Iowa?
Well, I think, Christiane, you'd have to say that the world has been looking for reasons to reinforce a conviction that I found in talking to people in a lot of countries, which is that there's an inevitability to Trump being not just the nominee, but being restored to the White House. So I think for a lot of people outside the U.S., they looked at this with a sense of dread, but not surprise, because I think there's been a great sense that this is going down a certain track, and that's one more off-ramp that we've now avoided. New Hampshire will be the next off-ramp. So that's my sense of it, that there was no surprise, almost a reaffirmation of a fatalism that exists around the world that Americans are going to reelect us.
Okay, here's what media critic Margaret Sullivan said this week about the coverage. In a constant show of performative neutrality, journalists tend to equalize the unequal, taking coverage down the middle, even though that's not where true fairness lies.
Yeah, so what you have here in the mainstream liberal media, guys, is this idea that the mainstream liberal media is being too soft, right? One of the reasons why Trump is ascending back to power is not because the liberal media has been going too hard, right? They've shown clearly and obviously there is an agenda from the establishment to take down one guy by essentially fixating on him and obsessing over every little thing he does, he says, taking it out of context and blowing it up to be something that is not. That, along with the political persecutions, that, again, clearly and obviously are political in nature. No, that's not it. That's not it. You're not covering Trump hard enough, okay? You're being too neutral, right? Again, just imagine thinking that the mainstream liberal media is neutral, right? But that's really what they believe, right? They really believe that they're neutral and that they need to not be neutral in order to take down Trump. And these people are living in Google for Cocoa Puff worlds, right? And I want to talk about it because on Bill Maher's show, Andrew Sullivan, who is a quote-unquote conservative, and I'm really using that in quotes because I think he's more of a libertarian. I don't think he's actually really conservative. I think he's had some back and forth when it comes to that, but I'm just going to, for the point of this video, I'm going to say conservative. He's going to confront Ari Melber, who is a MSNBC host, okay, on the fact that MSNBC is obsessed with Trump and they push propaganda all the time. And Ari Melber's response is basically going to align with this idea that, well, you can't both sides this, right? You can't say that we're propaganda because all we do is align with the left, because there is no both sides to this, right? We're right, and the truth happens to be on the left. Therefore, there is no both sides, right? And this is, again, what they're pushing in the media here. And it's pretty fascinating to see their response to Trump gaining more and more popularity despite their obsession with trying to take him down. So I want to react to it, but before we get into it, we have to have a word from the sponsor of this video, Noble Gold. If you're trying to navigate market turbulence, why not set a course to the Noble Gold investment safe haven? With global uncertainty looming, your savings and retirement plan are under siege. But there's one asset that has stood the test of time, and that is gold. Unlock the peace of mind that comes with owning gold, the ultimate safe haven. And if precious metals are new to you, Noble Gold will hold your hand throughout the whole process. They have a team of experts that will guide you through every step on your way to safety. Thousands of investors have sheltered their retirement savings with Noble Gold Investments. Don't leave yourself exposed to the markets right now. It's just way too risky. With gold near an all-time high and looking to climb even higher, it's the perfect time. Open a Noble Gold Investments IRA and secure your future with a free silver virtue coin. Act now before it's too late. Call 877-646-5347 and claim your free coin before it's gone. Or visit noblegoldinvestments.com now. That is noblegoldinvestments.com, the only gold company that I trust. And just remember, there's a risk with every investment and there's no guarantee of any kind.
The Democrats have done the last 4 years, which is respond to Trump by going even further to the left, means that we are losing the legitimacy of the system. And that is the critical thing. When you lose that core legitimacy, you lose your democracy. That's where we're really going to lose our democracy, because we don't believe in it anymore. You can see that the result of that, the way this works, is you start disbelieving in all the institutions, and then you say, who do I want? You want a strong man. You want someone to come in and cut all the knots. This is the classic case of how you lose a democracy. And he's almost certainly going to be there. He's going to win this election. Almost certainly.
I think you make fair points, Andrew.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Democrats never believed in democracy in the first place, right? They don't believe in democracy, okay? They've essentially contested every election that they've lost since Bush v. Gore. And there is political violence that happens as a result. Like, for example, when Trump won in 2016, there was political violence as a result. When Trump nominated Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court, there was political violence. Again, we can go on and on and on about this. But they don't believe in democracy because even in their own party, they're trying to overthrow their own primary because you have to overthrow democracy to save democracy, right? And that's the type of authoritarianism that is in the Democrat Party that they endorse, but yet they claim that that's what they're against. That's what they're fighting against, right? But again, this is what the left does, right? They try to be authoritarian in response to what they claim is authoritarian, but they become even more authoritarian, right? Which, again, that's the shift to the left. When you're talking about the lockdowns, okay, locking down this country, forcing people to take vaccines, trying to forgive student loan debt, even though it's unconstitutional, but still doing it anyways. When it comes to the rent moratorium, Joe Biden ignoring this order from the Supreme Court to lift it. He wanted to keep it in place, try to keep it in place anyways. The government censoring political speech that they don't like through the internet, big tech companies. Yeah, this is the authoritarianism that's in the Democrat Party. And they try to justify it by saying, well, we're doing this to stop authoritarianism coming from the right. This is exactly what they do. But again, this guy, Ari Melber, is going to essentially argue that there's no both sides to this, right? There's no both sides. There's no equivalence. There's no neutrality here, okay? This is what he's going to argue.
But you sound a little bit both sidesy. I don't know if that's on purpose or not. Well, then you've just been complimented.
Thank you.
In your mind. But there's absolutely problems with the Democratic Party and the overreaction to Trump. We just spoke about the ballot case and its thinness, and we cover that all the time on the news. But there's not equivalence here on the problems that you just referred to. There's not equivalence on political violence. There's not equivalence on responding to court cases. Bush v. Gore was very controversial, but there was no violent response, and there was not any mainstream response from Democrats about overthrowing the certification. Al Gore actually showed up on Jan 6th, remember it was that date, and certified it. So,
well, yeah, so here's the deal. Again, this guy, this is the type of delusion that we're talking about, right? This guy said, well, there's really no both sides. You can't both sides. They hate that. They hate that when you try to both sides it, right? And to a certain point, I do kind of agree with them when it comes to there is no both sides, but not for the reasons that they agree with it, right? Because I personally think what's happening on the left, particularly when it comes to certain issues like political violence, which this dude pointed out, it's much worse from the left, right? I just pointed out there was political violence when Trump won. There was political violence when he nominated Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. The left incited political violence in response to George Floyd. The left supported it. The Democrat Party supported it. You also had political violence when Roe v. Wade was overturned. The left supported that as well, too. Okay, you had Supreme Court justices doxxed and harassed outside of their homes. There was an assassination attempt. Now, when it comes to the Israel-Palestine situation, there's political violence. There's a riot almost every single day from pro-Palestinian far-left extremists. Yeah, there is no both sides, right? If you want to look at it in the sense that, yeah, the left is way worse when you talk about political violence than the right, okay? The only major case of political violence from the right is literally January 6th. That's it. They don't have anything else. There's nothing else. There's literally nothing else, okay? But I can name major event after major event after major event that involve political violence from the left. It's not even close, right? When Democrats don't get their way, when leftists don't get their way, their default way of dealing with it is literally political violence. And the fact that this guy is not acknowledging that tells you just how out of touch with reality he actually really is. Because again, imagine if the right had committed all of the acts of political violence in this country that the left has committed, particularly since 2020. Imagine, just imagine. They never stopped talking about it, right? That's one of the reasons why they never stopped talking about January 6th, because that's the only thing they can point to. But again, if they had committed the BLM riots, the Roe v. Wade riots, what's going on right now with the pro-Palestinian riots, they never stopped talking about it, okay? It would be nonstop on the news every single day. Again, it's fascinating how disconnected these people really are.
There isn't a both sidesism to this decay, and what Trump does, and I agree at times he may draw his opponents into messy, dumb feuds, but he is the one banking on a cynicism, an attack on democracy, and a complete rejection of the policy democracy that you want, because they didn't even have a platform. So he's saying it's just me. You don't even know what I'm going to do. Just vote for me, no platform, and you've got a whole Republican Party that's basically codifying that.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Joe Biden's doing, right? That's exactly what Joe Biden's doing. Like, come on, is that not what Joe Biden's doing? I mean, seriously, right? I mean, they're banking on rejecting democracy. That's what they're doing in the Democrat primary. This is why they're not allowing anybody to run against Joe Biden in states like Florida and North Carolina, etc. What platform does the Democrat Party really have outside of abortion and that Trump is a threat to democracy? They don't have a platform. There's no platform. It's just Joe Biden. You got to vote for Joe Biden just because Orange Man bad, right? Again, this is why they hate when you both sides things, right? Because when you both sides things, right, that really shows that what Democrats are complaining about so much that the other side does, no, this is what you do. You guys do the same thing. And to a certain extent, I actually do agree with this guy that there is no both sides, but not for the reasons that he says it, right? Actually, I agree with it because the left is much worse than the right, right? So when you look at, again, the political violence of the left and what the left does versus things they complain about what the right does, yeah, there's no both sides. The left is objectively worse, right? There's so much worse. So, you know, again, it's funny to me how they get upset about the whole both sides thing, because the both sides thing exposes the fact that these guys are just as bad, if not worse, than the people they complain about so much. Again, it's fascinating stuff.
What would be good at MSNBC is if you actually did think about both sides and weighed the arguments and made constructive arguments against that side while respecting them. You don't do that. It's propaganda all the time.
What you just said, what you just said just described my show. It's like I had a Trump lawyer on this week. I've had Steve Bannon on my show. I've had Trump White House officials.
I watch MSNBC.
Right, so and you describing a goal that I'm achieving, I take that as a compliment.
Well, in your mind.
Well, let's be nice. It's the first show of the year. Let's not tear each other's face off.
Yeah, so, you know, again, kudos to this guy for telling this dude his face that his network is propaganda all the time, right? Because it is. MSNBC quite literally is propaganda all the time. Here's the thing about Fox News. A lot of people don't like Fox News. Even conservatives aren't really high on Fox News because of, you know, reasons, right? But at least with Fox News, right, you are going to get both sides, right, on Fox News. Clearly, there's going to be a conservative slant, but you will get both sides, okay? You'll get the establishment conservative view, you'll get the Trump view, you'll get the Democrat view, and in some cases, you will get the progressive view. But that's not what you're getting on MSNBC. On MSNBC, 98% of the time, you're getting the establishment Democrat view or some far left viewpoint, right? That's what you're getting on MSNBC. You're not getting the Trump view, right, very much. You might get the establishment Republican view, but again, only in the context of anti-Trump, right? Not in any other context. And that's basically their whole network. And again, this is why they are propaganda. They're literally propaganda all the time. Okay, they are worse, way worse than CNN, right? I used to give CNN so much heat, right? But the reality is that MSNBC is much worse than CNN. Okay, that network, in my opinion, I think is nothing but far left propaganda. So hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.